Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland, and I'm standing in front of the house where Zachary Macaulay lived for the last few years of his life. Is where this waitress is now. Up high above my finger, behold yon plaque, and that's it. This is a blue plaque, which is not blue, with a delightfully British illogicality. Anyway, Zachary Taylor is better known as the father of his more famous offspring, Thomas Babington Macaulay. Not Taylor, I'm thinking the American president, Zachary Macaulay, forgive me. So back to Macaulay. Anyway, he was born in Inverary in the Highlands of Scotland in 1768. And his father was a Church of Scotland minister. 2 generations earlier, his family had spoken Gaelic exclusively. But his father was bilingual. I don't think Zachary Macaulay spoke Gaelic. That's that language spoken in Western Scotland that is the same as Irish. Anyhow, so he came from a distinguished family, and one of his brothers was a general, another one was a theologian, of the Church of Scotland as well. But it was one of those poverty-stricken areas of the United Kingdom at the time, and he very much felt part of the United Kingdom, very much felt British and not just Scots. And the British Empire was expanding. The Jacobite cause had been comprehensively defeated, and so after the vanquishment of the Jacobites, Scotland's integration into the UK was completed. So he didn't seem to question the Union or want home rule. That was just not an issue in those days. Anyway, so he had a bit of a grounding in the basics of school, but despite his father being a clergyman, not much more, so largely autodidactic, like his son was to be later. Mainly taught himself the classics, and he read English literature voraciously. So then he moved to Glasgow, which had become the biggest city in Scotland, an industrial city, a commercial city, and he got some sort of clerical position in a business, but there seemed to be brighter prospects in warmer climes, so he took ship for the West Indies, and then he made landfall at Jamaica. And when he disembarked, he got himself a job as an assistant manager at a plantation. I think he might have arranged it before actually his voyage. It would be a bit risky to go out there on spec. Now, the people who were working on this voyage were not free. Okay? These bondsmen were treated abominably, obviously lashed if they were not working hard enough. So the most unspeakable tortures were visited upon these unfortunate African people in the Caribbean. And he recoiled from that, and he began to realize this was something grossly immoral. So after a while, I think it took him a few years for his conscience to have enough of it, he resigned his situation and returned to the United Kingdom, much to paternal disapprobation. Anyway, and he became a zealous anti-slavery campaigner. So he was here in London, he moved in anti-slavery circles, helped to found the Anti-Slavery Society, wanting its mitigation and, of course, its abolishment when that was practicable, but they could at least lower the severity of it, reduce the severity of it, and various codes were passed to make it less cruel. Anyway, he was part of the Clapham sect in the church. You can't quite see it, but it's over there. I filmed it out on the green, Holy Trinity Clapham. And who else was in it? It was Henry Thornton. I'm just trying to think, I should know them all. William Wilberforce and a few others. Their names will come to me. That guy Venn, or the Venn diagram. Clarkson, yeah, because Clarkson was sent that essay when he was at Cambridge, Anne Liciat in vito servitatem dare. Is it permissible to enslave the unconsenting? And up until this point, it became a completely academic topic for him, but he really engaged with it. And he met Macaulay, who gave him first-hand account of just how horrific it was. So Macaulay was a Whig. He was never elected to Parliament, or indeed stood for Parliament, but he had the Whig view of history. And for him, history was a perpetual battle between civilization and savagery. And perhaps surprisingly, he put his own country on the side of civilization, despite the completely uncivilized things it was doing to people who were kidnapped in Africa and taken by ship across the ocean. So he was a tireless campaigner in his cause, but also for Christianity more generally, part of the missionary society. He later got himself appointed governor of Sierra Leone. So some African Americans had fought for the crown at the time of the American Revolution and then been relocated to Nova Scotia. Canada as such wasn't formed, so from New Scotland they're taken to Sierra Leone, that they could be at liberty in their ancestral continent, but sometimes their ancestors left several generations before. And these people were often partly of European stock. But he went out to be their governor, which was no mean accomplishment, considering he did not come from a particularly well-connected family. But I suppose it was probably regarded as a hardship post, and who wanted it? More or less, moreover, he was in the white man's grave of West Africa and was lucky to survive a few years. So many tropical diseases, before quinine or anything, he could easily have been carried off by malaria. So he returned to the British Islands, and then he wed Miss Selina Mills, who was a Bristolian, and her parents were part of the Religious Society of Friends, commonly called the Quakers, were quite wealthy. His sister had married a Mr. Thomas Babington of a village in Leicestershire, and he was very good friends with his brother-in-law, so much so that he named one of his children Thomas Babington Macaulay, the more famous Lord Macaulay. So he lived here his last few years, and then he died that May of 1838. He'd lived to see his son elected to Parliament. He's buried in Bloomsbury in one of the gardens there. He's got a memorial in Westminster Abbey. He didn't quite make it to be buried there, but it says it's got that anti-slavery slogan which he did so much to propagate, "Am I not a man and a brother?" pleading for mercy for these people who were treated just so abominably. So that's just a little bit about Zachary Macaulay. I'm just sort of thinking he knew James Mill, he knew John Stuart Mill, he knew Jeremy Bentham, who was very active in that cause as well. Anyway, that's enough about Zachary Taylor. I don't think he published a single book, actually, but published hundreds of articles in various magazines, and their wish to abolish slavery was certainly inspired by their Christian faith, despite the fact that the slavery is explicitly endorsed by the good book. The Bible enjoins you to enslave people, says it's entirely permissible, far more moral thing to do something truly evil, such as wearing clothes of more than one material. Anyway, that's about enough. I'll switch it off in a minute. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you for donations on PayPal and Patreon. And any other more messages? GeorgeCallahan79@gmail.com. That's how you find me on PayPal. And book me for lessons in history, politics, religious studies, French, law, geography, English as a foreign language, English literature. And I'm just pointing out, there's the church they used to worship. Maybe you can see it there lit up. Let me see, above, you can't really make up. Above this thumb, that's the church, Holy Trinity in Clapham. That's Clapham Common, that open space out there. All right, I'll switch it off now, so cheery bye-bye.